Part 26. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 251. When I got home in the evening, the babies drank milk and took a bath, and fell asleep soon. They were exhausted from the day. Wei Yuxian was also tired, but she was very happy and it was worth it. For dinner, with the favor of her elders, she ate a small mountain of food. Her stomach was full and she was satisfied. After eating, she took a walk around the manor, played with the flowers and little pigeons, and then went back to her room to take a shower. When she came out of the shower, she saw an extra person in her room, her Uncle Xian. She thought about what happened last night, pouted, and said, "Uncle Xian can't snatch Yu's clothes tonight. She is wearing little white rabbit's pajamas tonight, and there are 2 long ears on the hat. She looks so pretty. The little bear pajamas are her favorite clothes, and the little white rabbit clothes are her second favorite clothes. Uncle Xian cannot take them away." Fu Xuanyi responded, "Okay, I won't steal your clothes." Wei Yuxian was happy, lay down on the bed, and said, "Then I'll sleep with Uncle Xian first. As long as Uncle Xian doesn't snatch her clothes, anything can be said." Fu Xuanyi didn't see her saying he was going to sleep somewhere else. He breathed a sigh of relief, said good night to her, picked up his pajamas and went into the bathroom to take a shower. Fortunately, he can still sleep with Guai, and he is already very satisfied. He was afraid that if Guai said he was going to sleep with someone else, wouldn't all his coaxing be in vain? It has already passed since Fu Xuanyi last said he would live for another 3 days. As soon as Lu Changxiao reached the 3rd day, he couldn't wait to have someone finish off Ding Nana. After personally confirming that the person had returned to the west and watching his men bury the person, he hurried back to the room, simply packed his luggage, and drove away with a few of his men. The destination is, of course, the airport. In the car, he made another video call to Yu Wanchen, and was very happy with his little girlfriend. "Tian, I'm on my way to the airport now. You can see me tomorrow afternoon." In the video, Yu Wanchen is still lying on the bed. It's lunch break at this point, and today is Friday again. She has no classes in the afternoon, which means she has the weekend off from now on. She yawned sleepily, looking forward to Lu Changxiao coming back. She said and said, "I haven't been to Country E yet. Is it fun for you there? I'll bring you over to play when you have a holiday." Lu Changxiao said with a smile, "I don't think it's very fun." "Do you know why?" Yu Wanchen shook her head and said, "I don't know." Lu Changxiao's eyes were even more crooked, and he said, "Because I'm not here without you, I don't think it's fun." Tian, next time we come together, it will be fun. He is here alone, either protecting Mrs. Xian or serving Ding Nana, and has little time to go out. Even the gifts I bought for Tian were all taken out of my time, but they were boring. As soon as the words came out, Yu Wanchen blushed a little, entirely because she was shy about this man's love words. She said, "Okay, next time we go together, don't forget it." "I will never forget it," Lu Changxiao promised. Later, Yu Wanchen asked him to show her the scenery of Country E. They looked and chatted all the way until Lu Changxiao was about to get on the plane and had to hang up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Lu Changxiao felt a little empty, but when he thought that he would see his Tian in more than 20 hours, his mood became better again. Is there anything happier than seeing Tian? For him now, there is no more. He sat down in his seat and closed his eyes to sleep as soon as he sat down, thinking that he could wake up as soon as the plane landed. But the flight lasted more than 20 hours, and he slept a total of 4 times before the plane landed. After getting off the plane, he dragged his luggage and hurriedly walked out. Fortunately, he didn't have much luggage, otherwise he would have been very anxious if he had to wait for the checked luggage. Tian said that he would be picked up from the airport today. He didn't want Tian Tian to wait for so long, so he took long steps and walked faster than others. Several of his men were following him, and they were not slow at all. They didn't understand why the second master was walking so fast. After waiting for a while, they knew why the second master left so fast, because the second wife was waiting for him outside. Several of his subordinates looked at each other and sighed helplessly, remembering that they were still single. When will they also find wives? Lu Changxiao saw Yu Wanchen in the crowd at a glance, his face showed joy, and his pace quickened, almost starting to run. After a few steps, he walked up to Yu Wanchen, hugged her, and shouted happily, "Tian Tian." Yu Wanchen was also happy, but she was more restrained. She hugged Lu Changxiao back and shouted, "A Cheng. Tian Tian, I miss you so much." Lu Changxiao put his head on her shoulder and rubbed her ear, like a big dog. Yu Wanchen touched his hair and said, "I miss you too. Let's go back. I'll cook for you." "Okay," Lu Changxiao said happily, hugging the person for a while longer before letting go, his eyes staring at the face of the person in front of him for a moment. Why is his Tian Tian so beautiful? No matter how you look at it, you won't get tired of it, and it looks good no matter how you look at it. Yu Wanchen took the initiative to hold his hand and led him outside. Lu Changxiao looked at the hands they were holding together. Tianatian's hand was obviously smaller than his. Such a cute little tender hand. It was soft and tender when he held it. Once he held it, he didn't want to let go. He had a happy look on his face, and there was no hint of the ruthlessness of killing when interrogating people. Seeing the second master like this, several subordinates shook their heads and sighed in their hearts. "Second master, how about you maintain your image? Don't act like an obedient big dog." But their second master couldn't hear what they were saying. He only cared about his wife. Went outside and got in the car. Lu Changxiao and Yu Wanchen sat in the back, with a subordinate driving in front, and the rest of the people took another car so as not to disturb the young couple. Lu Changxiao missed his little baby. After raising the fender in the car, he tilted his head and asked, "Tian Tian, can I kiss you?" Yu Wanchen's answer was, "No." Lu Changxiao's face was full of disappointment, and he asked, "Why? Why don't you kiss me? We haven't seen each other for so many days, Tian Tian, can you bear it?" Yu Wanchen showed a sly smile and said, "Who asked you to ask?" "You asked, of course I said no." Lu Changxiao understood what Yu Wanchen meant. This time, he stopped asking and directly raised the person's chin, stared at the beautiful and attractive lips, and kissed her. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 252. Yu Wanchen did not refuse his kiss, but her face was a little red. "I still feel shy when kissing him." Lu Changxiao was very strong and would not let go of the person in his arms, conquering the city in her mouth. Yu Wanchen retreated steadily, her body went limp and she collapsed in his arms. After kissing you for who knows how long, Lu Changxiao let go of Yu Wanchen due to lack of oxygen. She glared at Lu Changxiao, as if blaming him for using so much force that she was starved of oxygen. The rise and fall of his chest became larger, and Yu Wanchen opened his mouth slightly, constantly sucking in fresh air to make himself alive again. Lu Changxiao looked down at her, and was seduced by her again. Before she could breathe evenly, he kissed her again. This time, it was even more fierce than the last time. Yu Wanchen stretched out her hand to push him, but the man was too strong and held her tightly. No matter how hard she pushed, she couldn't shake the man one bit. "Ah, going crazy. Why is he so strong?" Yu Wanchen closed her mouth tightly to prevent him from entering, but he found a way and pinched the soft flesh of her waist. After she screamed in surprise, the man barged in. The man who succeeded had his eyes widened, but Yu Wanchen was so annoyed that she raised her hand to beat his chest. It's just that her hands were soft and it didn't hurt at all when she slapped her, but it was a little itchy. Yuanchen was once again deprived of oxygen. No matter how hard she struggled, the man refused to let go. In the end, she was able to give up resistance and indulge in it. Lu Changxiao hadn't seen anyone for so many days, and he missed her a lot this time. He wouldn't be satisfied without a few more kisses. Finally, when Yuanchen thought she was going to see Tai Nai, the man finally let go of her. Her eyes were round and slightly misty, and she glared at him angrily. Her cheeks and the tips of her ears were slightly red, and her lips were much redder. She looked like she had been bullied. Lu Changxiao felt that he was being seduced again, and lowered his head. This time, he kissed not her lips, but her exposed neck and collarbone. He was really confused and attracted by his sweetness. I want to leave more of his mark on his sweet body. Let more people know that Tian Tian is his Lu Changxiao. Declare sovereignty. Yuanchen didn't expect that this man would come again and bite her neck like a puppy, causing pain. Needless to say, there must be stamps on it, and not just one or two. While panting, she pushed the man's head, trying to push him away, but she was so soft from the kiss that she felt powerless when she raised her hand. How could she push him away? Unable to push him away and wanting to stop this man, Yuanchen could only gasp and shout angrily, "Lu Changxiao!" The man closed his eyes and left a plum blossom mark on her delicate collarbone, and said in a low voice. But the man still had no intention of leaving, and Yuanchen became even more angry. She hit the man on the shoulder and said, "Lu Changxiao! Let me go. I'm going to be angry." Lu Changxiao finally heard the anger in her words, which was also a bit coquettish. He raised his head and helped her push the hair from her face behind her ears with a look on her face. "Tian Tian, I miss you so much." His voice seemed to be hoarse, and he was filled with desire. Yuanchen didn't want to forgive this man so quickly. Who told him to refuse to listen no matter what she said and insist on kissing her until she lost all strength? She lowered her head to see what had become of her neck, but she couldn't see it. Instead, she saw a bright red plum blossom on her collarbone. Seeing this, Yuanchen became even more angry, and raised her hand to hit Lu Changxiao a few more times. Then he let out a hum and turned his head to the side, not looking at him. Lu Changxiao took his sweet little hand in his hand, blew it on her, and asked, "Does Tianatian's hand hurt? My husband has rough skin and thick flesh, so it won't hurt if he hits her, but don't hurt our Tianatian's hand, it hurts." "Who said you are my husband?" "Lu Changxiao, are you shameless?" Yuanchen turned around and said fiercely. However, Lu Changxiao felt that she was like a little kitten. She showed her little paws. Even if she was angry, she had no deterrent effect. Instead, she was cute and tight. He resisted the desire to hold her in his arms and love her deeply, fearing that his little Tian Tian would be even more angry and unable to coax her, so he said, "Tian Tian, you can't chase your wife if you want face." Yuanchen let out a hum and moved her butt over, keeping a little distance from Lu Changxiao, not wanting to pay attention to him. She wanted to ignore him for 5 minutes and not talk to him to see if he knew he was wrong. "Sweet wife, dear baby, I was wrong about you, please don't ignore me, okay?" Lu Changxiao had a good attitude in admitting his mistake, and called him 3 embarrassing names in a row. The tips of Yuanchen's ears turned redder, and she reached out to cover her ears so as not to listen to this man's sweet words. Ah, going crazy. Why does Lu Changxiao have such a nice voice? Now it's a little hoarse, which makes it sound even more charming. Ah. If this continues, she will easily become soft-hearted. Lu Changxiao opened her ears and this time, spoke directly into her ears, "Sweetheart, please forgive me. I just miss you so much. I haven't seen you for so many days and I'm going crazy. My dear, if you are also wrong, then let me continue to be wrong, I never want to correct it in my life." The man spoke a series of love words in her ear, attacking her so hard that she could no longer think. I wanted to cover my ears, but my hands were still controlled by the man. I could only listen to his sweet cannonballs, blushing and heart beating. The man talked for a long time, and she finally couldn't bear it anymore and said, "Okay, okay, I forgive you, please stop talking." Lu Changxiao raised the corners of his mouth, stopped, and kissed the tip of her reddish and cute ear, feeling satisfied. He held her in his arms, put his head on her shoulder, took a deep breath, smelled the familiar scent of her body, and felt full of happiness. He's back, it's great that he's finally back to see his sweetheart. The two said nothing, feeling each other's warmth, pink bubbles lingering around them. The car drove to the house Yu Wanchen rented near the school, which was already their little home. Back home, it was almost dinner time. Yu Wanchen tied up her hair and went into the kitchen. Lu Changxiao also followed in, like a follower. He made up his mind that from now on, he would follow his sweet baby every step of the way. He would go wherever Tian Tian goes. To make up for the vacancy during this period, Yu Wanchen glanced at the follower behind her and allowed him to follow her without saying anything. When she came to the refrigerator, she asked, "Do you have anything you want to eat?" Lu Changxiao pulled the hem of her clothes and said, "I don't choose. I will eat whatever Tian Tian makes." "Then do you have any requests?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 253. Lu Changxiao thought for 2 seconds and said, "Cook more Tian Tian, I have a big appetite." Yu Wanchen said oh and took out an extra piece of meat and a little more vegetables. When measuring the rice, she cooked half a cup more. This should be enough for her boyfriend to eat. Her boyfriend is a real big eater. While Yu Wanchen was cooking, Lu Changxiao was clumsily washing the vegetables for her, making a hole in one of the vegetable leaves, and the one that was missing a length, which made Yu Wanchen want to drive her out of the kitchen. "Get out quickly, don't come to huo my vegetable leaves." She carried him to the kitchen door. Lu Changxiao looked at her aggrievedly and said, "I didn't mean to be sweet, I just didn't control my strength well. Trust me, I will definitely wash it well this time and I won't break the vegetable leaves." How could Yu Wanchen believe him? She shook her head and said, "No, you will only hinder my cooking here. Do you still want to eat?" Lu Changxiao nodded with puppy eyes and said, "I think so." "Then you go and sit over there. You can play with your phone or watch TV. I will prepare the meal soon." Lu Changxiao shook his head, "No, I want to stay with you. I don't want to be separated from you." Yu Wanchen saw that he was so pitiful, as if he was afraid of being abandoned by her, and her heart softened. She sighed and said, "Okay, then you just stand here and watch." Lu Changxiao nodded, very well behaved, and said, "I'll just watch from here." Yu Wanchen continued to cook, washing vegetables, cutting meat, and cutting ingredients. Lu Changxiao looked at her slick movements and couldn't help but sigh at how wonderful his family's sweetness was. When I saw her cutting meat, my hands started to feel a little itchy. I couldn't bear it anymore, so I ran away and said, "Tian Tian, I can cut meat. Let me do it. Let me do it." His voice was a little excited. He finally found a place to use it. He must not waste it. Yu Wanchen looked at him doubtfully and asked, "Are you sure you can do it?" Lu Changxiao nodded his head twice and said, "I can definitely do it. I'll cut it how you say, Tian Tian." Yu Wanchen saw that there were stars in his eyes and he looked extremely confident. Somehow, she believed him, gave up her position, and told him what shape she wanted to cut into. Lu Changxiao walked over excitedly and followed Yu Wanchen's request, raising the knife and bringing it down very neatly. Even Yu Wanchen's eyes lit up when she saw his sword skills. After Lu Changxiao finished cutting the meat, he turned around to ask for praise. How is it sweet? How was my cutting? Yu Wanchen gave him a thumbs up. Awesome, I didn't expect your knife skills to be so good. Where did you learn it? Lu Changxiao didn't dare to answer her latter question. He just said, I'm so good anyway. Leave all the meat cutting work to me in the future. Okay, I'll leave it to you from now on, and I can save some time. A meal was quickly prepared with the cooperation of the two. The food was on the table and everyone sat down. This meal consisted mostly of meat, because Lu Changxiao liked meat and didn't like vegetables, which Yu Wanchen had observed before. Sure enough, as soon as he sat down to eat, Lu Changxiao was using his chopsticks to pick up the meat. Not only did he pick it up himself, he also picked it up for Yu Wanchen. He had never favored a plate of green vegetables. Yu Wanchen felt a little helpless after seeing it, so she gave him a chopstick of green vegetables and said, balanced nutrition. Lu Changxiao said oh twice, without saying anything, and ate the leaves. He swallowed them without chewing much. Yu Wanchen laughed in her heart when she saw it. She even said she wasn't picky about food, but she looked so bitter after eating a piece of green vegetables. At the dinner table, Yu Wanchen served him vegetables several times, but he didn't say anything and just ate them, but it was a bit painful to eat. He knows that Tian Tian is doing it for his own good, and eating more vegetables is good for your health. After dinner, Yu Wanchen put all the dishes into the kitchen, put on gloves and prepared to wash the dishes, and Lu Changxiao followed. Tian Tian, I want to wash it too. He hugged Yu Wanchen's slender waist and rubbed her shoulders, acting coquettishly. Yu Wanchen didn't want him to mess with his bowl, so she said, you don't have to wash it. I don't want to buy bowls tomorrow. Just go out and sit and wait for me. No, I want to wash the dishes. Lu Changxiao rubbed her ears a few more times, showing off his coquettish skills. Yu Wanchen couldn't resist him, so she had to find another pair of gloves, put them on for him, and asked him to wash off the foam on the bowl. Lu Changxiao looked at the dishes in his hands with a serious look on his face, cleaning them carefully, not letting go of any foam. I don't know, he thought he was doing some scientific research. He was serious about washing this time and used the right amount of force. Not a single bowl was broken. After washing the dishes, they were still intact, but he was so happy. Tian Tian, I didn't break a single bowl, he said to Yu Wanchen with a stinking look on his face. Yu Wanchen patted his head and praised him, not bad, not bad. It seems that you are still of some use. I'll leave the dishes at home to you if you wash them a few more times and become more proficient. Okay, Lu Changxiao happily agreed, happy that Yu Wanchen gave him the job of washing the dishes. He doesn't want his Tian Tian to be so tired. His little princess Tian Tian should enjoy life. If he doesn't want to wash his hands anymore in the future, just invite someone back. He has plenty of money and can make Tian Tian live a better life. But now, he also enjoys spending time alone with Tian Tian. In this warm little home, just the two of them, it couldn't be better. After tidying up the kitchen, Yu Wanchen pushed Lu Changxiao into his room and said, hurry up and take a shower and go to bed. You must be exhausted after flying for so long. Lu Changxiao didn't take a shower for 30 hours, and he felt a little disgusted with himself. Without saying anything, he found a bathrobe and entered the bathroom. Outside, Yu Wanchen also returned to her room, sitting on the table doing homework and making a PPT. After going to college, there are always endless PPTs to finish, and it is not as easy as adults say. Once she became focused, she forgot about time and was immersed in her own world, unaware of the passage of time. After Lu Changxiao took a shower, he shaved himself and applied toner. He looked more energetic and was very satisfied when he looked at himself in the mirror. He hummed a little tune and went out. He looked around the living room and saw no one. He guessed that his Tian had gone back to the room. He came to the door of her room, raised his hand and knocked on the door gentlemanly. Yu Wanchen came out of the PPT and said, "Come in." Lu Changxiao pushed the door in and saw her tinkering with the computer. When he got closer, he couldn't understand the things on it. He moved a chair to sit down and asked, Tian, what are you doing?" "Work on the PPT, I'll give it on stage next week." Lu Changxiao supported his head, looked at her sideways, and said, "Our Tian is so awesome. Unlike me, she can't even understand her." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 254. There are just specializations in the art industry. What you know, I may not know. Yu Wanchen started working on his own PPT again. "What's the matter with you?" "It's okay. I'll keep working on it." She tapped her hands on the keyboard, knocking out a nice melody. Tian, just keep doing it and ignore me." He still sat there with his head propped up, showing no intention of leaving. Yu Wanchen concentrated on her PPT and soon ignored Lu Changxiao. Lu Changxiao looked at his attentive little girlfriend and felt that she was so sweet and charming. People who work hard look the most beautiful. He admired Yu Wanchen's flourishing beauty and was fascinated by it without even realizing it. He could no longer put anything else in his eyes, he could only see his favorite sweetness. Looking at it like this, I don't feel bored at all. It's just that his hands were a little restless and couldn't take time off. He wanted to pull the corners of Yu Wanchen's clothes, tugging here and poking there, stretching that corner out of shape. Yu Wanchen didn't notice that her clothes were being tampered with. She ran into some trouble and searched the internet for some information before continuing. Time always flies by when you are serious. Before you know it, an hour has passed and Yu Wanchen's PPT has come to an end. After finishing the last thing, Yu Wanchen breathed a sigh of relief and stretched. His clothes were lifted up, revealing the soft white flesh around his waist. When Lu Changxiao saw that gleam of white skin, the desire he had been suppressing surged up again. So white and tender, why does his sweetness look so delicious? Yu Wanchen didn't notice the dangerous look in the eyes of the people around her. She glanced at the time and saw that it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. She turned around and asked, "Why are you still here? Aren't you tired after flying all day?" How could Lu Changxiao be tired? He is very energetic now. I want to do something bad and use up all my energy. Thinking of this, he remembered the fair skin he saw just now, his eyes darkened, and his voice became hoarse. He shook his head and said, "I'm not tired. I slept on the plane." Yu Wanchen said oh, stood up, and went to get her pajamas and said, "Then you go back to the room, it's getting late, I want to take a shower and go to bed." Lu Changxiao didn't move. He sat on the chair and said watching her movements. After Yu Wanchen finished speaking, she didn't care about him anymore, thinking that he would go out by himself, so she took her pajamas and went into the bathroom to take a shower. How could she have imagined that this man promised her on the surface, but in fact he didn't even move his buttocks? Lu Changxiao listened to the sound of dripping water in the bathroom. He took a deep breath and tried to expel the yellow waste from his mind. After trying hard, he found that it couldn't be expelled at all. Even more went in. Isn't this tempting him to commit a crime? Hateful. He closed his eyes and imagined the whiteness just now. This thought was incredible. My breathing is a bit heavy. Time has become unbearable, and every minute and every second waiting for Tian to come out is so unbearable. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he felt that it had been a long, long time before his sweetness came out. Yu Wanchen was wearing a pink plaid pajamas. After taking a shower, she looked pink all over her body, especially on the tips of her ears. It made Lu Changxiao breathe heavily. She was a little surprised when she saw Lu Changxiao still in the room, and asked, "Why are you still here?" Then, She saw the danger in Lu Chenxiao's eyes, looking at her like he was looking at prey. She is no longer a little girl who knows nothing. Although she has not practiced it personally, she has also learned a lot of theoretical knowledge. With just one glance, she knew what Lu Changxiao was thinking. She swallowed, feeling that her situation was a bit dangerous. Tian, when Lu Changxiao spoke, his voice was extremely low and hoarse, as if he was conveying some meaning to her through his low hoarse voice. Yu Wanchen hated herself for being able to understand it instantly. Why did she have to understand it instantly? She wanted to pretend that she couldn't figure out what Lu Changxiao wanted to do, but Lu Chenxiao's eyes were so hot that she couldn't even pretend. I could only bite the bullet and chase them away. It's getting late. Go back to your room quickly. Lu Changxiao stood up, stared at her, and walked over step by step. Yu Wanchen's heart skipped a beat with every step he took. The man walked up to her and lowered his head to look at her. The heat in his eyes seemed to overflow and burn her. Yu Wanchen couldn't help but take a step back, trying to put some distance between herself and the man. As soon as she stepped back, the man took another step forward. She wanted to retreat, but the man held her back and prevented her from retreating. Tian. He just called out and lowered his head to kiss her. Yu Wanchen tilted her head to avoid the kiss and said quickly, Lu Changxiao, calm down. Lu Changxiao chased after her lips and said, I can't calm down Tian. Finally finding those soft lips, Lu Changxiao kissed them fiercely, biting and exploring them. Yu Wanchen struggled for a while, but couldn't break free. The man's attack became more fierce. After a while, she gave up resistance and fell with him. This time, Lu Changxiao didn't kiss for too long, because he could feel that the person in his arms had become soft and could no longer stand. He picked the person up, walked to the big bed, put the person down, and he also covered him. Yu Wanchen could feel the changes in the man's body. It was so hot that his whole body felt like he was in a furnace. She was a little scared. After all, she had never experienced anything like that before. It was said in the novel that the first time would be very painful. She was completely unprepared and didn't expect to hand over her first time so soon. She folded her hands on her chest and whispered, how about, you go take a cold shower. Lu Changxiao chuckled, and the magnetic voice reached Yu Wanchen's ears, confusing people's hearts. Tian, do you think it's useful to take a cold shower now? He asked. It's so cold, are you willing to let me take a cold shower? Yu Wanchen was really reluctant to let him take a cold shower on a still cold day, but now, if he didn't take a cold shower, what other solution could there be? I am still young, I don't want to go so fast. And they haven't prepared small balloons yet. What if there is a baby? No, absolutely not. She is still a child and cannot yet accept the fact that she has a baby. Tian, I will be responsible for you. Let's go get the marriage certificate tomorrow, okay? His words sounded quite scumbag, but Yu Wanchen knew that he was not such a person, otherwise, he would have. Instead of waiting until now, respect her choice. For a moment, Yu Wanchen also had an impulse to give herself to him like this. But it was only for a moment. She also thought of more, such as she was still studying, and she was not ready yet. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 255. If she had a baby at this time, she would not have the financial means yet, and the other would still be in school, which would affect her studies. So, not yet. Yu Wanchen regained her senses in time and said, Chang, can you wait until I graduate? I don't want to interrupt my studies. She reached out to touch his handsome face, soothing him who was restless. Lu Chenxiao's mind became clearer, he relaxed his body, lay on her body, buried his head in her neck, and took a deep breath. He sighed and said a vague hum. Now, it is indeed not the best time. His age is okay, but Tian Tian is still young and is still in school. The only strange thing is that he was born a few years earlier. If he had been born a few years later, he might still be Tianatian's classmates. But now, he can also accompany Tian Tian to school. As long as Master Xian doesn't assign tasks, he can stay with Tian Tian. Yu Wanchen hugged him and patted his back gently with her hands, as if comforting a big dog. Lu Changxiao nuzzled her neck, kissed her a few more times, and said, "Tian Tian, I feel so uncomfortable." Yu Wanchen turned her head to look at his face, looking bitter and uncomfortable, and asked, "Then do you want to take a cold shower?" Lu Changxiao shook his head and said coquettishly to her, "I don't want to wash it." "What should we do?" "Just leave it hanging like this." She could feel the heat and majesty of that thing. "Being pressed against her makes me feel shy." Lu Changxiao shook his head again and said, "It's uncomfortable." "Then what do you think we should do?" Lu Changxiao had already had an idea in his mind and whispered something in her ear. After hearing this, Yu Wanchen's face turned red. I was a little hesitant to agree to him. Lu Changxiao acted coquettishly in her ear again, saying things like how he felt uncomfortable, but Yu Wanchen couldn't get enough of him, so she agreed. Lu Changxiao happily held her hand and kissed her tenderly several times before. Yu Wanchen's face was always red, and in her ears was her boyfriend's low and hoarse voice. She didn't know how much time had passed, but Yu Wanchen couldn't feel the passage of time at all. She just felt that this period of time had passed extremely long. With great difficulty, her tender hands were freed, and they turned red and almost bruised. She blushed and asked Lu Changxiao to get off her, and she shyly went into the bathroom to wash her hands. Lu Changxiao lay on the bed contentedly, staring at the ceiling in a daze, with the corners of his mouth raised. Yu Wanchen washed her hands several times with hand soap in the bathroom. After drying them, she put it under her nose and smelled it. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she always felt that the smell was still there. When I looked at myself in the mirror again, my face was as red as a ripe tomato. She stopped washing her hands and walked out while rubbing her almost numb hands. Outside, Lu Changxiao was still lying on her bed, without even changing his posture and the smile on his face. She sat down on the edge of the bed, crossed her thin legs, not daring to look at the man, and said, You should go back to your room to take care of yourself and go to bed." Lu Changxiao turned to look at her lazily and asked, "Can I sleep with you tonight?" Yu Wanchen shook her head and said, "No, you can sleep alone. Who knows if this man will suddenly appear again in the middle of the night, then you will be really dangerous when you are by his side." Lu Changxiao moved over, put his arms around her waist, and rubbed her waist, showing off his coquettish skills. "Tian Tian, I promise not to do anything. Let's sleep together." Yu Wanchen wanted to pry his hand away, but the man held her tightly, and she tried her best not to pry him away. She could only say, "No, we can only sleep together after we get married." In essence, she is a fairly conservative person. "It's okay before we get married. I will never mess around. Tian Tian, I promise you, if I mess around, I will never set foot in your room again." "Okay, Tian Tian." What he said was sincere. To prevent him from ever entering Tianatian's room in the future, it would be better to let him die. Yu Wanchen agreed, said a shy covered her face with her hands, and said, "Go and clean it up quickly." Lu Changxiao happily said okay, stood up and kissed Yu Wanchen on the face before walking out of the room and going back to his own room to change into pajamas. "The suit on my body is a bit dirty." After changing clothes and coming back, Yu Wanchen still lay down on the bed. He was holding a bag in his hand, which contained the gift he brought back to her from country E. When I came back, I only thought about posting with my wife. How could I think of anything else? I just went back to the room to get my pajamas. I saw them by chance, then I remembered them and brought them over together. He put the bag in front of Yu Wanchen like a treasure and said, "Tian Tian, look at the gift I bought for you." Yu Wanchen looked at this exquisite gift bag and asked, "What is it?" "Open it and take a look." He thrust the gift bag into her hand. Yu Wanchen stood up quickly, sat down with her legs crossed, opened the gift bag, and found that there was a gift box inside, which contained something like jewelry. The gift box was opened again, containing a necklace, a beautiful star pendant. She took out the necklace in surprise, with a smile on her face and said, "It looks good. This star will still shine under the light. Take a closer look at why the star shines." It turns out that there is a diamond embedded in it. It's a real diamond. He's quite small. When Lu Changxiao was buying gifts in country E, he took a fancy to this necklace at first sight, thinking that his Tian Tian would like it very much, so he bought it without saying a word. Now it seems that his Tian Tian really likes it and he bought it right. "Tian Tian, let me put it on for you," he said. Yu Wanchen didn't dare to wear it or put it away. She put the necklace back into the box and said, "This necklace must be very expensive, right?" Lu Changxiao didn't need to tell her that such a big diamond was expensive. "It's not expensive, not expensive at all. Take it, Tian Tian, and I'll put it on for you." "Then how much does this necklace cost?" Lu Changxiao named a number, 6 digits, which shocked Yu Wanchen. She has never seen so much money in her life. Her family is just an ordinary family, and it can't even spend the amount Lu Changxiao mentioned in 1 year. This man still said it was not expensive. "It's obviously very expensive. It's too expensive. You should return it." "I don't dare to wear such an expensive thing." She shook her head and closed the box, put it back in the gift bag, and returned it intact. "How expensive is it?" "No matter how expensive it is, can it be as expensive as my Tian Tian?" Lu Changxiao took out the necklace again and insisted on putting it on her. He has been with Master Xian for so many years. Although his assets are not as good as Master Xian, he is still very rich, right? He also had several small companies under his name, but he found them troublesome to manage, so he hired people with high salaries to manage them for him. To him, 6 figures are not even a drop in the bucket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 256. Yu Wanchen stopped his hand and prevented him from wearing the necklace on her, saying, "It's really too expensive. I don't dare to wear it. It will make me feel uneasy if I wear it." Yu Wanchen didn't dare to go out when she thought that she was carrying such valuable things with her. What would you do if someone spotted you and robbed you? It's a small matter if something is lost, but a big deal if something happens to someone. Then please accept it, okay? Let's hide it properly and put it in your little vault. Lu Changxiao put the necklace in her palm and closed her palms together. Yu Wanchen looked at the dog eyes of the man in front of her. The big eyes were looking at her like this. Even if she wasn't soft-hearted just now, she was soft-hearted now. "Okay, I'll take it." She clenched her fists, then unclenched them, put the necklace back into the gift box, rewrapped it, stood up and hid the gift bag. Seeing her accept it, Lu Changxiao felt better. When the person came back, he couldn't wait to hold the person in his arms, turned off the light, and said, "Good night, Tian Tian." "Good night." Yu Wanchen was in his arms, her face quietly turning red again. When she grew up, it was the first time she slept in the same bed as an adult man, which was quite embarrassing. Over in country E, Wei Yuxian woke up in Fu Xuanyi's arms early in the morning. Looking at the handsome face of the person in front of her, Wei Yuxian secretly smiled in her heart. She sat up. The people around her had not yet woken up and were sleeping deeply. Wei Yuxian was afraid that he would miss breakfast and get hungry, so she poked his handsome face and shouted, "Uncle Axian, Uncle Axian is getting up." Fu Xuanyi woke up, opened his eyes and looked at the little ancestor in front of him, laughed helplessly, stretched out his hand to hold her in his arms, rubbed her shoulders and said, "Good boy, sleep a little longer. He worked very hard last night." He looked at the person in his arms but couldn't eat. He could only endure it and couldn't sleep. "Last night, I got up and took a cold shower to suppress the dryness. For this reason, I didn't fall asleep until much of the night, and naturally got up late in the morning." Wei Yuxian twisted a few times in his arms and said, "Uncle Axian, you have to get up and have breakfast. If you don't eat breakfast, you will get sick." Fu Xuanyi restrainedly kissed her on the forehead and said, "Can you sleep with me for a while?" "But I'm not sleepy anymore. I've had enough sleep," Wei Yuxian said. "Uncle Axian, would you please get up quickly and play with me?" "Okay," she said coquettishly in his arms, her voice so soft and sweet. How could Fu Xuanyi not follow her? He kissed her soft lips and got up with the others. Wei Yuxian got up excitedly, thinking about washing up quickly and eating a delicious breakfast. Fu Xuanyi was led by her a little faster. After they washed up, they went downstairs to have breakfast. "There is an unexpected guest on the dining table today." Wei Yuxian looked puzzled at the appearance of a stranger at the dinner table at home. This stranger was still smiling when he saw her, and he was a little handsome, but not as handsome as her uncle Axian. She took Fu Xuanyi's hand and sat down with her father next to her. She turned around and asked in a low voice, "Dad, who is he? Why did he come to our house so early?" Before Wei Qiuan could speak, the person over there spoke with a warm expression, "Sister-in-law, I am Lin Chenyuan, do you really not remember me?" "Master Xian, long time no see. I came over to see my sister-in-law." The visitor was Lin Chenyuan, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. He arrived here at midnight last night. After hearing that Wei Yuxian had an accident, he wanted to come. Unfortunately, his family's business encountered some trouble, so he was delayed for a while. Fortunately, that trouble was solved smoothly, and he also took time to come to Country E. He had previously heard that his sister-in-law had lost her memory and had a 6-year-old mind. He still didn't believe it, but now that he saw his sister-in-law like this, he believed it. Completely believe it. It's also a pain for Master Xian. What will my sister-in-law do if she never recovers her memory? Fu Xuanyi said and said, "Long time no see." Wei Yuxian looked at him with confusion, her brows furrowed, and she tried hard to think about whether she had seen this person before. But there was nothing else in her mind except the memory of those days at Joan's house. Naturally, she didn't remember who Lin Chenyuan was. "I don't know you." Wei Yuxian shook her head. Lin Chenyuan smiled and said, "It's okay, sister-in-law, let's get to know each other again. My name is Lin Chenyuan, and I am Master Xian's good brother. Sister-in-law, you can call me Ah Cheng. Are you Uncle Xian's friend?" She thought for a while and asked. When Lin Chenyuan heard the name Uncle Xian, he couldn't hold himself tight. He wanted to laugh, really wanted to laugh. But he knew that the situation was not suitable for laughing, so he held back forcefully. He suppressed a smile and said, "Yes, I am a friend of your Uncle Axian, the kind of person who has a good relationship." Wei Yuxian thought for a while, looked at Lin Chenyuan seriously, and said, "Good morning, Uncle Aiken." Lin Chenyuan. He stopped laughing for a moment and glanced at Fu Xuanyi in panic, then back at Wei Yuxian and said, "Sister-in-law, just call me Ah Cheng." Wei Yuxian called out again, "Uncle Aiken." Lin Chenyuan put his eyes on Fu Xuanyi for help, blinked several times, and signaled Fu Xuanyi to speak. Fu Xuanyi just glanced at him lightly and said nothing. It was Fu's mother who spoke up and said, "Xiao Chang, Yuxian is in a special situation now, so you can be Uncle Chang for a while." Lin Chengyuan smiled bitterly and said, "I know, auntie, then I will be Uncle Chang for a while." After introducing the person, Wei Yuxian began to concentrate on eating breakfast. Not only did she eat it herself, she also gave Fu Xuanyi something she thought was delicious. After breakfast, her stomach was full. If Fu Xuanyi hadn't stopped her, she could have eaten more. "The food on this table is so delicious." She ate it and wanted to eat it. "After eating it, I still want to eat it." Wei Yuxian stood up and walked to the sofa to sit down. Fu Xuanyi also followed, held Wei Yuxian on his lap and helped her rub her belly. "Hey, eat less next time, so your stomach won't feel uncomfortable." "But breakfast is delicious." "Eucalyptus likes it and wants to eat it again." "Then do you want to feel sick to your stomach?" Wei Yuxian shook her head and said, "I don't want to." "Then just eat less, darling." "Oh, Eucalyptus knows." The picture of the two of them was extremely loving, and they looked very pleasing to the eye, as if they had been a couple for many years. Lin Chengyuan looked envious over there. "Auntie, even if my sister-in-law doesn't remember Brother Xian, she can still fall in love with Brother Xian again. They are a perfect match." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 257. Besides his sister-in-law, who else would Master Xian be so gentle to? Who else could be so patient with? He even helped his sister-in-law rub her belly. The doting look on her face made others envious. Yes, fortunately Yuxian still likes Xian, otherwise, I would have been worried about Yuxian being snatched away. Mother Fu said, "Xuan's face is still useful, Yuxian likes it no." Lin Chengyuan had to nod in agreement. Indeed, Brother Xian's face is his advantage. "This is also due to you. You were the most beautiful woman in Kyoto back then. No matter how tall Brother Xian is, he can't be far behind. My uncle is also handsome. I heard from my dad that he charmed thousands of girls when he was young." Mother Fu laughed and said, "Xiao Chang, you are good at talking and have a sweet mouth. So do you have a girlfriend?" The latter sentence made Lin Chengyuan's smile freeze directly on his face. Well, auntie, I'm still young, so I'm not in a hurry." He laughed dryly a few times. Fu's mother stared at him and said nothing. Lin Chengyuan was stared at for a while, and he could no longer laugh. He said, "I seem to be quite old indeed. Brother Xian has hugged me twice, and I am still single. He is similar in age to Fu Xuanyi, and he is also in his early 30s this year. I originally thought that he would get married before Master Xian, because with the way Master Xian looks like, he doesn't seem like someone who can get married. But who would have thought that Master Xian met his sister-in-law and not only got married, but also gave birth to 2 children. What a fate. No one knows what unforeseen things will happen tomorrow. You also know that you are not young, right? Your mother always tells me that you are not serious. When will you finally make up your mind?" Lin Chengyuan was also a child she watched grow up. He had a good relationship with Fu Xuanyi and the two families had close contacts. She also regarded Lin Chengyuan as half a son. Nowadays, she doesn't have to worry about Xian's affairs. There are also descendants of the Fu family, but Xiao Cheng still doesn't have a companion, so she feels a little anxious. Parents and elders always worry about their children. They worry about their studies when they are young, and worry about their family business when they grow up. Lin Chengyuan scratched his face and said with some embarrassment, "I haven't found the right one yet. If I find the right one, I will be the first to tell my aunt. You have to remember this. Don't always think that you are still young and still want to play. It's time to get serious." Mother Fu said, Xiao Cheng, you are the child I watched grow up, Auntie also wants to see you doing well. There are not many true brothers around Xian. You are one of them, as are Cheng Xiao and Jinyu. Jinyu is married and has a child, and Cheng Xiao also has a girlfriend. You are the only one missing. I know Auntie, I will definitely look for her, Lin Chengyuan promised, but he didn't know for sure. Over the years, none of the girlfriends I have been dating are sincere. They are either after his money or his status. It is very rare to find a sincere person. When will he find a true person? Afterwards, Fu's mother stopped talking about it and asked Lin Chengyuan about the situation in the country these days. Here, Wei Yuxian comfortably enjoyed Fu Xuanyi's belly-rubbing service for a while. The situation was much better, at least her stomach was no longer full. She patted her stomach, which had settled down, and said, "Thank you, Uncle Xian." "My dear, don't say thank you to me," Fu Xuanyi said, "if you really want to thank me, just kiss me." Wei Yuxian looked around and found that no one was paying attention to them. She quickly kissed Fu Xuanyi on the face and went to watch TV with a blushing face. She didn't know that her little actions were all seen by the people in the living room. Everyone pretended not to be looking at them, but in fact they were paying close attention to them. Seeing her little actions, they couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Fu Xuanyi is even happier, the happiest of all. In the past, I wouldn't have kissed him in front of so many people, and I wouldn't have even been willing to hold hands with him. Now, sitting on his lap and kissing him again, the progress is not a little bit big. He also coaxed the innocent person in his arms, "Kiss me again, okay?" Wei Yuxian refused, shook her head and said, "I want to watch a cartoon, and I don't have time to kiss Uncle Xian." Fu Xuanyi didn't force her, he rubbed the uninjured part of her head and said, "Then just watch." After watching the cartoon for a while, Wei Yuxian sat on Fu Xuanyi's lap and leaned her whole body in his arms. It was not too comfortable. Just when she wanted to continue watching the next episode, her grandma came over. Grandma wore a particularly nice outfit today, as if she was going out. Wei Yuxian asked curiously, "Grandma, do you want to go out to play? Can you bring Eucalyptus with you?" She got up from Fu Xuanyi's arms and went to hold her grandma's hand. Grandma held her hand and said, "Of course you can. Go and change into a nice set of clothes. Grandma will take you out to play." Wei Yuxian cheered yeah and asked, "Can we take Uncle Xian with us? Can we also bring Dad, the baby, and Mom?" Grandma smiled and nodded, and said, okay, you can take whoever you want." "Grandma, you're so kind," Wei Yuxian said, "I'm going to change my clothes first." After saying that, she took Fu Xuanyi with her, went to the room, and picked out clothes in the cloakroom. After choosing for a while, I finally found the clothes I was satisfied with. After changing them, I pulled Fu Xuanyi, who had already changed clothes, downstairs. As soon as she went there, she saw that the whole family had put on nice clothes, and even the babies had put on cute clothes. "Grandma, are we going out to play as a family?" she asked in surprise. Grandma nodded and said, "Yes, the whole family does. Do you like it?" Wei Yuxian nodded quickly and said, "I like it. I like it so much." She doesn't know what's going on, but she just likes to do things together as a family, such as watching TV or playing, and she will feel very happy. As long as you like it, the driver has already driven the car to the door. Let's go out quickly without wasting time. Wei Yuxian nodded her head a few more times, let go of Fu Xuanyi's hand, and went to hold her grandma's hand. The family went out in a grand manner, and Lin Chengyuan followed them. He was wearing a high-definition suit and looked energetic. After getting in the car, because there were too many people, we drove 3 cars. Wei Yuxian naturally wanted to share a car with Grandma. As soon as I got in the car, I took my grandma's hand and asked, "Grandma, where should we go to play?" Grandma said, "Grandma, will you take me to take pictures with you? You can take a lot of beautiful photos of our family." She planned this while the whole family was free today. She wanted to take a family portrait and some artistic photos of their home. When she returned to the Fu family in the future, they could also take the photos with her. Look at her more. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 258. Wei Yuxian was very happy when she heard that she was going to take photos, so she started chatting with her grandma, and her little mouth kept talking non-stop. Other people in the car would occasionally chime in, and Wei Yuxian also replied to them. While chatting, the car drove to the photo studio. This is a photo studio that specializes in serving wealthy families. The photographers and venues are top-notch. They are ranked second in country E, and no one dares to be ranked first. Today, this store is dedicated to serving the Jones family, and all other customers' appointments have been postponed. Originally, some families were dissatisfied with the arrangement of the photo studio. It seems that after making way for the Jones family, they stopped complaining and let the store arrange it with a smile. The store owner also got up early this morning and tidied up the photo studio. The store manager and a group of store employees were waiting for their arrival at the door. After finally waiting for the people to arrive, the store manager, with a decent smile on his face, walked outside with a group of employees to welcome them. "Dear Mrs. Jones, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your arrival." The store manager took the lead. Hebrew stepped forward and shook hands with the store owner, and said, "I'm going to trouble you today." "Mr. Hebrew, this is what it should be," the store manager said with a smile. "Everyone, please go in first, it's windy outside." Under the leadership of the store manager, Wei Yuxian and others entered the photo studio. The store manager had already debugged the equipment, set up the scenery, and was waiting for them to come and take family photos. So as soon as Wei Yuxian and the others entered, they could take family photos directly, but it would take some time to get into position. It took about 10 minutes to get the position right. Wei Yuxian and her grandma sat in the front and middle, holding the baby in their hands. After taking many family photos in a row, the next step was to take separate photos. Wei Yuxian became a favorite. Everyone wanted to take pictures with her, but she was too busy. After taking photos with her family, it was already lunchtime, and Wei Yuxian had time to rest, sipping the hot juice brought by the store manager. The family members were so enthusiastic, especially the brothers, who kept vying to take photos with Wei Yuxian. Wei Yuxian's smiling face almost froze. She sat on the sofa in the living room, tilted her head, leaned half of her body against Fu Xuanyi, and said, "Uncle Xian, I'm so tired." Fu Xuanyi touched her face and said, "Guai Guai is so popular in our family. Everyone likes Guai Guai very much." Wei Yuxian couldn't help but laugh when she thought of her brothers fighting over taking pictures with her. "Yes, everyone likes Eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is so happy." Wei Yuxian chatted with Fu Xuanyi for a while, and the lunch ordered by Hebrew was delivered. It is the best restaurant in E country. After lunch, Wei Yuxian sat and rested for a while, and was taken to take another photo. This time, it was her own artistic photo. There are many rooms in the photo studio, and each room has a different setting to meet the different needs of customers. As for Wei Yuxian, she had to shoot all the sets, put on different clothes, and pose in different poses under the guidance of the photographer. This was another afternoon of shooting, and Wei Yuxian was extremely tired. By the time the last set of photos were taken, she was almost deflated. He came to Wei Qiuan with a little pout, grabbed his father's neck and hung it on his body, and said coquettishly to his father, "Dad, I'm so tired, don't take pictures anymore." Wei Qiuan held his beloved little princess in his arms, patted her back and said, "Okay, okay, no more, "Daddy, can you take the eucalyptus home?" Wei Yuxian nodded weakly, hanging on her father and unwilling to let go. Wei Qiuan felt very distressed when he saw his daughter so tired. He thought if he had known better, he would have divided the filming into several days, and his wife would not be so tired. Anyway, they have plenty of time, so there is no need to rush at this moment. But now that all the photos have been taken, there is no point in talking about them anymore. "Come on, let's go home." Wei Qiuan let go of her and went to find her hand to hold. Wei Yuxian didn't want to move at all now. She couldn't even find the strength to raise her hands and said, "Daddy, give me a hug." Wei Qiuan did not act immediately, but was thinking about whether he could hold his precious little princess with his old bones. Hearing this, Kylie took a step forward and said, "Third uncle, let me hold my sister. I have the strength." After hearing this, the remaining three brothers and Donald also came out and said, "Uncle, I can also hold my sister/sister. Let me do it." Fu Xuanyi looked at it and was a little ready to make a move. His obedience is really popular, and I don't know if he can win people over. Wei Qiuan glanced at his tall nephews, shook his head, and said, "I'm not that old yet. Our family is young and I can hold them." With that said, he bent down and picked up Wei Yuxian. Kylie hurriedly said, "Third uncle, don't be pushy. It's okay for us to come. Just be careful." Wei Qiuan picked up Wei Yuxian. The latter hugged his father's neck, his face became a little happier, and he said, "My father is the most powerful." Wei Qiuan felt that it was okay. His little princess was not too heavy and he could run around with her in his arms. "It's okay. I have my own sense of humor. Let's go and go back quickly." "You should be hungry by now," he said. "Eucalyptus, are you hungry?" Wei Yuxian rested her head on her father's chest and felt that her father was tall and mighty, the most powerful father in the world. When she is in her father's arms, she has nothing to fear. She touched her belly and nodded, "I'm hungry, I'm hungry." Wei Qiuan said okay, quickened his pace and walked out. A large family of people walked out of the photo studio. The store manager and a group of clerks personally escorted them out and watched them get in the car and leave. It will take a few days for the photos to be ready, and then the store manager will personally deliver them to the Jones family estate. Wei Qiuan carried him into the car, and Wei Yuxian got off her father with a smile. She even kissed her father on the cheek and said, "Dad is so kind." Wei Qiuan chuckled, "If Dad is not kind to me, who will I be kind to? Then Dad should always be nice to Eucalyptus." "Okay. Okay, Dad will always be kind to you." Fu Xuanyi had a clear view of Wei Yuxian's actions just now. After seeing her kiss her father's cheek, she clenched her hands slightly at her side. The jealousy in my heart was boiling again. This is Guiguai's father. There is no problem with Guiguai doing this. Besides, Guiguai's current mind is only 6 years old. It is normal to be close to Dad. Fu Xuanyi said this to himself in his heart, took a deep breath and calmed down. Mother Fu, who was beside her, noticed something was wrong with him, patted his hand and said, "Relax your mind. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 259. Fu Xuanyi said and didn't know if he heard it. But looking at him like this, Fu's mother obviously didn't listen. Alas, this brat is exactly the same as his father. They both love to be jealous and will be jealous no matter who it is. After returning home and having dinner, Fu Xuanyi remained silent and stared at Wei Yuxian, not knowing what he was looking at. Wei Yuxian's child's temperament didn't notice anything wrong with Fu Xuanyi. When they returned to the room, they both took a shower, then lay on the bed covered with quilts and turned off the lights. Wei Yuxian yawned. She was so tired after a long day that she closed her eyes and wanted to sleep. She stayed in Fu Xuanyi's warm arms and hugged the man's strong waist. She felt comfortable sleeping in this position. "Good night, Uncle Xian, go to bed," she said in a soft voice, and the words she spoke almost stuck together. Fu Xuanyi didn't want to go to sleep so soon. He lowered his head, raised the head of the person in his arms, and stared into her eyes. Wei Yuxian raised her eyebrows in confusion and asked, "What's wrong, Uncle Xian?" Fu Xuanyi narrowed his eyes, said nothing, and kissed her soft lips. Wei Yuxian's mind was a little sluggish because she was too sleepy, so she laughed twice and shouted, "Uncle Xian." Hearing this soft voice, the desire in Fu Xuanyi's lower abdomen suddenly ignited. Spread throughout the body at an extremely fast speed. His eyes became dangerous, and he put his big hand on her lips and rubbed them gently. His voice was low and hoarse, and he said, "Kiss me, dear." When Wei Yuxian heard this, her slow little head was still a little shy. She raised her head slightly and kissed him on the cheek. "Uncle Xian, I'm so sleepy, let's go to sleep." Every word he said seemed to be coquettish. "Don't sleep, please, kiss me again," he said. Wei Yuxian could only kiss him on the face again. After the kiss, she yawned and felt very sleepy. "Eucalyptus needs to sleep." Her voice became smaller and smaller. Fu Xuanyi said, "Isn't that the right place to kiss me?" Wei Yuxian tried her best to open her eyes wide and wake up a little, and asked in a soft and waxy voice, "What's wrong?" Fu Xuanyi chuckled, pointed to his lips, and said, "Kiss here, dear." Wei Yuxian didn't think much about it. She just wanted to go to bed quickly. She kissed wherever Fu Xuanyi asked her. She kissed the man on the lips and made a Trojan horse sound, telling him that she was serious about the kiss. But Fu Xuanyi was still not satisfied and said, "Kiss me again," obediently. Wei Yuxian said as if she was dissatisfied with his words, and said, "I need to go to bed." Fu Xuanyi coaxed her, "Kiss her again and you can go to sleep." In order to fall asleep quickly, Wei Yuxian kissed him on the lips again, and then she fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes before she could speak. When Fu Xuanyi saw the person in his arms falling asleep instantly, he touched the lips she had kissed, raised the corners of his lips slightly, and whispered, "Good night, my dear." He was relatively satisfied. Tonight, Guai kissed him 4 times, but only kissed his father-in-law once. Speaking of which, Guai loved him more. Nothing left to be dissatisfied with. The photos were delivered to the Jones family manor 3 days later. On this day, all the brothers and uncles in the family went to work, and even my father was not at home. Wei Yuxian was watching TV with her grandma and mother in the living room, holding a baby in her arms. The second sister-in-law and the fourth sister-in-law are also busy with their own careers and are not at home. After the person from the photo studio sent the album over, Wei Yuxian stopped watching her favorite cartoons. She picked up a photo album and started reading it with gusto. Wow! There are so many photos of her. She looks so pretty in the photo. Wei Yuxian not only wanted to watch it by herself, but also took her grandma to watch it with her. She said happily, "Grandma, look. It's a photo taken by me and Grandma together." With a warm smile on her face, Grandma said, yes, that's a photo of you and Grandma. Our family is so beautiful, she is the most beautiful little princess." Wei Yuxian chuckled and continued reading. Here, Fu's mother and Fu Xuanyi were also looking through another photo album. Looking at the photos in it, there were also photos of them and Wei Yuxian. After looking at it for a while, Fu's mother suddenly remembered that she had also brought some photo albums, which were taken when Yuxian was in Fu's house. They are not artistic photos, but photos of daily life, playing with children, or having fun at home. There are also many photos. She closed the photo album in her hand and said to Fu Xuanyi beside her, "I'm going to get something." Fu Xuanyi said to indicate that he understood. Fu's mother went upstairs, took out a few photo albums from her suitcase, and came back down again. After taking it down, she was not in a hurry to show it to Wei Yuxian. Instead, she waited for Wei Yuxian to finish reading the albums before taking out her own album. She said, "Eucalyptus, Mom still has a few photo albums here. Do you want to take a look?" Of course Wei Yuxian wants to watch it. He stretched out his hand and said sweetly, "Mom, show me." Fu's mother smiled from ear to ear, gave her the photo album, and said, "Read it slowly, there are several of them." She also thought that she could evoke Yuxian's memory through the photo album, so that they could return home early and get everything on track. Wei Yuxian opened the photo album, and the first photo was of her and her two babies playing with dolls. She said with some surprise, "Grandma, Mom, Uncle Axian, look. It's Gugu and the baby." She pointed at the photos in the album, as if she was afraid they couldn't see clearly. Grandma touched her round head and said, "Yes, it's Eucalyptus and the baby. Eucalyptus is playing with the baby." Wei Yuxian looked at the photo album page by page. Every page in it had her own figure, but she couldn't remember that she had taken such a photo. And the place in the photo, that big villa, is completely different from the castle she lives in now. So, when did she take this photo? When had she ever been to a place like this? Wei Yuxian racked her brain to think, but after thinking for a long time, she still couldn't figure it out, and it actually made her head hurt. As soon as her head hurt, she immediately stopped thinking about it. She covered her head with a depressed face and said, "Grandma, my head hurts." As soon as they saw it, they knew what had happened. Grandma quickly held her in her arms and comforted her, saying, "It's okay. We don't think about it anymore. If you don't think about it, your head won't hurt anymore." Fu's mother also took her hand, blew her head a few times, and said, "It's okay. Mom, give her a blow and it won't hurt anymore. It's okay." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 260. After a while, Wei Yuxian's head finally stopped hurting, and her wrinkled face softened, but she still looked a little wilted. She stayed in her grandma's arms and refused to leave. She felt comfortable in her grandma's arms. Grandma also doted on her and told her stories to divert her attention. Wei Yuxian quickly became immersed in her grandma's pleasant stories, forgetting the pain just now, and started laughing again. Fu's mother and Fu Xuanyi looked at each other with helpless expressions. Yuxian's situation makes her head hurt just thinking about it. When will she be able to regain her memory? Although Yuxian looks cute like this and they like her very much, they still want Yuxian to recover her memory quickly and get on the right track as soon as possible. "I'm just afraid that Yuxian will never recover her memory and it will always be like this." It's not that he can't afford to support Yuxian like this. The most important thing is that he can't stay like this all the time. Fu Xuanyi also felt helpless and didn't know what to do. When I asked the doctor, he only said that it would be best to wait and see and let her recover naturally. She must not be irritated again. No one knows whether she will regain her memory or become stupid the next time she is stimulated. They don't want to take this risk. But none of them expected that the change would come so quickly. On the second day after seeing the photos, Wei Yuxian still woke up from Fu Xuanyi's arms. She had just woken up and her mind was still a little confused. After waiting for a while, she suddenly realized that she had grown up. She has grown up to be 21 years old. She also found that she had recovered a lot of memories, such as the knowledge she had learned over the years, and knew that she was now studying at Kyoto University of Finance and Economics. But she still had no memory of the people she knew before. She sat up in a daze, stretched out her hand to look at her own hand, it was an adult's hand. After a while, she remembered what happened during this time. Just like her mind is only 6 years old, just like she is a crybaby, just like she is a spoiled child. At this moment, Wei Yuxian felt extremely helpless. Ah! Why was she like that when she was a child? And he still carries such a big body to act coquettishly with his father and grandma. Wei Yuxian lowered her head and covered her face with her hands, feeling so embarrassed. Who can tell her how to get rid of those embarrassing memories? Wei Yuxian was about to cry but had no tears, and for a moment she didn't know how to face her relatives. Her movements successfully woke up Fu Xuanyi beside him. These days, he has been sleeping later and later, always thinking about his obedience. Not last night, I took 2 cold showers and tossed and turned in bed for a while before falling asleep. He opened his eyes and saw his cute little girl lowering her head obediently and burying her face in her hands, not knowing what she was doing. This looks like a shy little white rabbit, so cute. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He stood up and hugged her from behind, put his head on her shoulder, and called in her ear, "Be good." Wei Yuxian's body stiffened and her eyes widened. She temporarily forgot about those embarrassing things, and then she remembered that there was such a person beside her. Fu Xuanyi is also the person she has been calling Uncle Axian during this period. Ah! She found that this matter seemed even more embarrassing. Because her parents are handsome and because they like her, she shamelessly sticks to them every day. How can this be done? She was a child when she was a child, and now is now. She has grown up now and knows more things, but she can't make the same mistakes as she did when she was a child. She is a big girl, and she cannot be so intimate with other men casually. Fu Xuanyi didn't know what the person in his arms was thinking, but he just felt that something was wrong with her reaction today. He kissed the tip of her ear and asked, "What's wrong, my dear? Why are you so dazed?" Wei Yuxian's body was even more stiff, but she came to her senses immediately. She opened her arms and got out of the arms of the man behind her. She moved her buttocks to distance herself from the man. She picked up a pillow and put it in her arms. She and Fu Xuanyi, staring at each other, said, "Fu Xuanyi, men and women cannot be intimate with each other." As soon as Fu Xuanyi heard what she said, he knew why he felt something was wrong just now. From the attitude and tone of Guiguai's words, it seemed that she had grown up. However, it seems that her memory has not been restored, otherwise, she would not have said such words. Fu Xuanyi thought for a while and asked, "My dear, how old are you now?" 21 years old, what's wrong?" Wei Yuxian was led away by him, but soon she realized what she was doing and said, "Don't call me good." At 21 years old, it seems that he has grown up to be the age he should be. Fu Xuanyi asked, "Why can't you scream?" Wei Yuxian said confidently, "You and I are not in a relationship, how can you call me such an intimate name?" "No, no. You can't call me that." Fu Xuanyi laughed out loud and said, "My dear, we are already married, and you still have the marriage certificate in your hand." Wei Yuxian had a serious expression on her face and said, "Marriage certificates can also be forged. I have lost my memory now and no one in the past can remember me. Who knows if you lied to me?" Snort. "I won't be stupid enough to be deceived by you. You want to trick me into becoming your wife? No way." She looked at Fu Xuanyi's handsome face. He was so handsome. But people say that the more handsome a man is, the more likely he is to be a scumbag. A scumbag who specializes in deceiving people's feelings. She had to wipe her eyes carefully and not be fooled by his face. Fu Xuanyi thought for a while and felt that his obedience had changed too much. Compared with her before amnesia, there was not even a slight difference. Guiguai before he lost his memory was not such a character. But if you think about it carefully, isn't this what girls in their 20s are like? In the past, He always felt that Guai Guai couldn't let go of him and was too premature for a little girl of his age. But I thought that she had become precocious because of her family, and I felt very sorry for her. Now, it seems that Guai Guai has changed into this kind of character, not bad. What she didn't have before, she had after losing her memory. Isn't this a kind of compensation for her? To compensate for the hardships she suffered before she was 20 years old. The childhood and family love that she had never experienced are now there, and the youth that she had never experienced is now beginning to be experienced. It's just that she doesn't recognize him obediently. This is very bad. He said, "What about our children being good?" Wei Yuxian was stunned for a moment, thinking of those two adorable little babies. She loves her two babies very much. Fu Xuanyi looked at her blank face, his fingers were a little itchy, and he wanted to pinch her cheeks. But it doesn't work now. His Guai Guai has grown up and denies her relationship with him. If he pinches her, her hair will explode.